What is the key focus? Now that you've perfected your systems, you want to shift towards your team, okay? And now the question is, how does my team get me ahead? Welcome to the Turn Your Followers into Clients podcast. I'm Vanessa Lau, and my mission is to help new coaches, content creators, and corporate escapees get visible and get paid. I went from quitting my corporate job with no backup plan to suddenly building a multiple seven-figure business in less than 2 years thanks to the power of social media. My life changed in an entire year, and I believe yours can too. So boss, let's help you get visible and get paid, and dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, this training is going to go through the different shifts that you have to make within your business and also within yourself if you want to transition from being a solopreneur all the way up to being a seven-figure CEO. Now, I'm Vanessa. I launched my business in 2019, and since then, I've grown it to multiple seven figures, teaching new coaches and consultants how to turn their followers into clients using social media. Today, I'm the founder of the Boss Gram Academy, where we teach our proprietary followers to client system to help people do that. And also, if you want to connect, you can find me on Instagram at vanessalau.co. On YouTube, you can search Vanessa Lau. And I also have a more in-depth business training at www.followerstoclients.com if you'd like to learn more about our method and different trainings to help support you. Now, here are the different stages that I recognized and I noticed when I went through the stages of going from being a solopreneur to all the way being a seven-figure entrepreneur with a full stack team. Now, obviously, when you first start off, you're just going to have a simple idea, but you're not necessarily taking any action. The moment that you start taking action, the moment you start making a little bit of money, now you're in the solopreneur space. This is likely where you're making less than $50,000. And in this stage, you are likely needing to still focus a lot of your attention on building your identity. Now, the next phase is the successful solopreneur, and successful is subjective, but what I mean by successful is you're making, a considerable amount of money, full-time income. And so you're making around 50 to 100K. And so here, you're really going to want to focus on building your visibility even more. Then the next phase is the six-figure entrepreneur. In this phase, you've probably surpassed $100,000. And here, you're really going to want to lean on your systems. You're going to really want to focus on those things. And then afterwards, you're at the seven-figure level. And here, you're making over $1 million, obviously. And you're going to want to focus on your team. Now, obviously, there are more stages to this, but I've kept it simple from solopreneur to seven figures because this is the journey that I've been through. Now, one thing I want to preface before I dive into each shift that you need to make so that you can really focus your attention on the right things at each stage is you have to remember that at every income level, it's going to require a different version of you. I'm going to repeat that. At every income level, it's going to require a different version of you, meaning what got you here is not going to get you there. And so at each stage, you're really going to need to make a lot of different shifts. Not only do you need to focus on more things, but you also have to remove other things that have helped you and served you in the past. And we're going to talk more about that as we enter through each phase. Now, like I mentioned, one of the first phases is being a solopreneur, and the income level that I've associated with this is just less than $50,000. And the key focus that I mentioned is you're really going to want to focus on building up your identity because a lot of people in this range, they are still not really clear on their offer. Even if you're making 40K, whatever else, if it's not consistent, let's say, if you're not making consistent 10K months or whatever else, how you can get there has a really big deal to do with the identity of your business. And the questions that you have to answer is, what are you? What do you offer? And why should people buy from you? Who are you in the space? What is your offer about? What is the positioning? And so what this includes is ideal client clarity. Who is the ideal client that you're trying to attract? And when you're under the 50K range, you can still make money and not know who your ideal client is. You can be dabbling with different clients. This is really when you're also in the testing phase. You're trying to figure out what positioning is landing. You're trying to figure out what clients you like to work best, which clients are considered nightmare clients. You're figuring out your pricing. You're figuring out a lot of things, but that doesn't mean you can't make any money, right? You can still sign clients and not totally have full confidence and full clarity on what your offer actually is. When you're under the 50K range, you're likely still testing a few things. Maybe you're testing some of your offers. Maybe you have multiple offers that you're testing. Maybe you're testing different launch strategies, whether that's doing webinars, challenges, direct to sales page, sales calls. You're still really trying to figure it out. You're also trying to do offer validation. So you're trying to, like I said, test, but also collect a lot of testimonials along the way so that people know you're legit. That also has something to do with your identity and how other people perceive your identity as well. It's kind of like branding. You can say that you're the best in the game, but until other people vouch for you and their perception is the same, that's when you have a true, strong brand identity. It's not just about how you perceive yourself, it's about how others perceive you. And when you're under the 50K range as a solopreneur, you're really trying to get that data. You're trying to get that validation. You're also going to be heavy in the competitor and market analysis. As you're testing out, you are comparing your offer to other people's, the experiences of your clients that they had with you versus other service providers, course creators, or coaches, doesn't matter. And so this stage, you're really experimenting. Now, those are some business things that you're going to want to focus on, but what about the internal shifts that you need to make? Well, there's a lot of things that when people are in this range, they go through, and that is analysis paralysis. To the point where, yes, you're doing the analysis, you're looking at what other people are doing, you're tweaking your offer. But a huge pitfall that I see a lot of people in this range doing is they think more than they actually do. So maybe you have all the Google Docs, you have all the spreadsheets, you have all the PowerPoint presentations. Maybe you even have the sales page done, but you're still not really articulating what you offer in the world. You're not really vocal on what you do. You're not really doing anything. And so analysis paralysis is something that's in this stage that is really going to plague you, that you need to be aware of letting go. The second one is perfectionism. So this kind of links hand in hand with analysis paralysis. Usually analysis paralysis comes with perfectionism. Maybe you're comparing yourself to other service providers and you feel like you need to present yourself a certain way, and that prevents you from actually taking any action because you're tweaking way too much. There is a difference between tweaking in your mind and tweaking, privately versus tweaking in public. When you tweak in public, maybe you're making pivots in public, maybe you're testing captions, maybe you're testing your offers, maybe you're hopping on calls and seeing what's working and what's not working with your ideal clients and your prospects. That's action. But when you're tweaking behind the scenes, that's perfectionism, right? And so that's something that you want to be mindful of at this stage that can keep you stuck if you don't shift out of that. The third one is discipline. Not to sound harsh, but I find that the laziest people are in this stage. And by lazy, it's usually coming from fear. A lot of people who procrastinate because they don't think that they're good enough. A lot of people who get overwhelmed really easily. And at this stage, you are easily overwhelmed. And so I don't want you to take offense to when I say lazy, but what I mean is that when you're at this stage, you're just so scared to take any action. And it can be perceived as laziness because maybe you didn't realize how much work it actually took. And this is also a stage where a lot of people give up on their business too. So maybe let's say you wanted to start a YouTube channel and all of a sudden you realize how much work it actually takes to start a YouTube channel. Well, you're going to face a lot of resistance because you didn't expect it to take that much work. And therefore, you're going to maybe procrastinate. You're going to do it tomorrow. You're not going to actually take action. And so in this stage, there's that shock of, oh my gosh, this actually takes a lot of work. And therefore, no action is actually taken. And that also goes into pushing past failure, right? So in this stage, all of us are afraid of failure. But as you go up in the stages of business, you're going to realize that failure is inevitable and you're always going to fail. It's your perception of failure that matters. And so when you're in this solopreneur stage, when you're making less than 50K, you are going to perceive failure differently from someone who is in the 7-figure range, from someone who is in the 6-figure range. You're going to think that failure means something about you, and therefore, anytime you make a mistake, you're not going to push forward more. Or you might not even give yourself the opportunity to make mistakes because you have analysis paralysis, perfectionism, and lack of discipline. And so because of your immense fear of failure and all these things, again, it leads to inaction. And so this stage, it really comes down to people thinking a lot in their mind, but not actually doing anything. And so you have to remember this. Like I said, you can dabble here and there and still make 10K months, 5K months, 1K weeks. It doesn't matter. You can still make money in this stage. That's why the range is 0 to 50K. But you're going to stay stuck with inconsistent 10K months because your audience is not clear on what you offer and what you are presenting is not scalable enough to be consistent. And what I mean by what you're presenting is not scalable enough to be consistent is at this stage, like I said, you're still testing, you're still pivoting, you're still, maybe launching multiple offers because you're trying to figure out what works best for you. Well, if you don't finally stick to one thing, it's going to be really hard to scale multiple offers. It's going to be really hard to scale custom solutions. It's going to be really hard to scale if you don't get clear on the one thing that you provide to the marketplace. And so dabbling is good if you want to go to 50K in your business. But if you stay stuck with dabbling, it's going to be really hard for you to break through and actually make those consistent 10K months for you to enter the 6-figure range. And so that's one thing that you need to be aware of as you go through this entrepreneurial journey. Now, a lot of people ask, why should I be known for one thing? I'm multi-passionate. I want to launch multiple things. I want to try different things. That's absolutely fine if that's your motto and that's what you want to do. But it is going to take more work from you. And it's going to confuse your audience. And so why is being known for one thing? Why does that matter? Well, first of all, it decreases confusion from your audience. If people are like, Vanessa is the girl that turns followers into clients, she helps people do that, that's more clear to my audience, right? Versus if people are like, well, Vanessa does like Instagram stuff, but she also does like LinkedIn stuff, and she also does, public speaking coaching, and she also does like freelancing. It's just very confusing. And at that point, you're speaking to everyone, but speaking to no one at the same time. Another thing is previous content that you create has more longevity. So imagine if you're posting on Instagram and, a few months ago, you were posting about your webinar to your health coaching services, right? That's great. But if you start pivoting, if people start finding your Instagram account and they're looking at your old posts, a lot of those old posts are going to be invalidated. They're no longer valid because now you have a new offer. Now that's fine. It's okay. Pivoting is fine, especially in this stage of business. But if you keep pivoting, then you're really invalidating a lot of the previous content that you've created. So let's say if I was a fitness coach, let's say, and I'm doing a presentation to you guys today about my fitness coaching services, right? And you have lifetime access to this presentation, let's say, okay? Then maybe 2 months later, I decide I don't want to be a fitness coach anymore. And instead I want to be, a business coach. That happens in business. That's totally fine. But what I'm saying is that now the presentation that I did today is invalidated because anyone who finds this presentation about fitness, about my fitness framework or whatever, even if they click to buy, it's going to be a broken link. They're not going to be able to actually be customers of mine. They're going to be confused. And so the more that you pivot in business and the longer that you pivot, the more invalidation you give to your old content pieces that you've once created. Versus for me on YouTube, the content that I did last year still brings me leads today, but beyond just bringing leads, it converts because it's still similar to what I offer today. Now, obviously, I've tweaked my offer here and there, but the overall mission that I have to help my followers, to help my audience turn their followers into clients is more or less the same. So I've been able to be really stable with that. Not only this, you also get increased speaking opportunities for niche summits and conferences. And so if I know that this person is a LinkedIn coach, let's say. Well, if I have a conference about social media, then it's going to be really obvious to me, a no-brainer for me to invite this person. And so when you are too broad and no one's clear on what you do, a lot of times when you go to conferences and summits, they want to invite experts, right? And so if I'm hosting a social media conference, I'm going to want to invite, different experts to fill up the speaker spots. I'm going to want a LinkedIn coach. I'm going to want a YouTube coach, an Instagram coach, doesn't matter. But if you're kind of like doing everything, then I'm not really going to be sure what you're truly known for. And therefore, I would rather choose a specialist to attend my conference than someone who's a generalist where I'm not really sure if my audience is going to go deep on that topic. I'm not going to be sure if my audience is going to get a lot of value if that person is too general. And so therefore, I won't extend the invitation to them to my speaking engagement or to my speaking event. Another thing about being clear and being known for one thing is you're going to get more referrals because referring you will be easier to other people. So imagine if I'm looking at your Instagram feed and it's kind of all over the place. Well, if someone asks me, hey, should I work with Diana? I'm going to say, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know what Diana does, or I'm not sure if that's really what she offers. Like last week she posted about this, and then the other week she talked about that. And now she helps this target audience, but yesterday she was helping another target audience. Like, I'm not really sure. And so that's not a really strong referral. Versus if it's very consistent on what you offer, then for your referrals, it's going to be a no-brainer. It's going to be like, oh yeah, Vanessa's the YouTube girl, or Vanessa's the Instagram girl. You should definitely work with her. Or if someone asks, who is the best in the business at social media marketing or at emotional eating, someone's going to be like, oh yeah, Vanessa. Oh yeah, Diana. Oh yeah, this person, because it's clear. It's like it's a part of your brand. So you want your brand to be consistent. You want your communication to always be consistent. And the last but not least, there's going to be a longer amount of time validating your service or product and perfecting it if you don't pick one, right? So there is going to be that experimentational phase, and usually that experimentational phase is right here, right? When you're still trying to figure out your identity. That's fine. But eventually, if you're finding yourself stuck in the 50K range and you're not really breaking past it, then it really shows to you that you need to just pick one thing and you want to just move forward with it. Because if you're just testing every single thing, it's kind of like the idea where if I'm trying to do all these different things, I'm really only doing like 10% of my energy into each one. And therefore, the end result is not going to be as strong because I'm spending so much time testing a huge volume of things. And so nothing is really going to go, I'm never going to go deep on one thing. I'm never really going to develop one thing and flesh it out fully because I keep pivoting. And so again, I want to make sure that you guys know that pivoting is fine. But at some point, the pivoting, it needs to be less drastic as you scale because you're just going to be wasting a lot of time. And so these are things that you want to be aware of. Now, let's talk about the next stage. So let's say you want to get past the 50K stage and you want to make your first $100,000, right? You want to get to the 99K, kind of get to that level. Well, now, instead of just chipping away at your identity, you're now going to really want to focus on visibility. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, how do I get more traffic? Now, what does this include? This includes expanding to other social media platforms. It includes prioritizing collaborations. It includes list building. It includes increasing your post frequency. It includes potentially even outsourcing so that you can get more done. And so what this means is that at some point, you're going to want to make sure you're growing your audience. Now that you know your identity, now that you've gotten, 50K under your belt with your existing audience, it's time to tap into more people. Now, visibility is something that you're always going to want more of as you grow. And I'll talk about why later. But these are things that you're going to want to shift gears on. And so here at this stage, these are some internal shifts that you also need to make. Now, imposter syndrome happens all the time. But in the 50 to 100K range, the imposter syndrome is going to be even higher because now you kind of know what you don't know. Instead of having that blind optimism, you're going to realize that maybe you have farther to go. Maybe you're going to have some clients that work with you, but you're kind of like, oh, maybe I got lucky. Maybe I don't know, maybe they felt bad for me, so they bought my services. There's going to be a lot of that conversation going on in your mind because maybe leading up to that point, the 50K that you've made in your business is not really consistent. So you're still in the feast or famine mode. And so you can't really be sure whether or not you just got lucky or whether or not you actually are you have a really great offer because you've been dabbling so much and you've been pivoting and you've been testing. And so that's normal. You're going to feel a lot of imposter syndrome at this stage. And really the purpose of this presentation that I have for you guys is so that you guys are aware of these things. And so when it happens to you, you're like, okay, I'm in this stage. I'm going to sit in this discomfort and I'm going to push past it versus like, I feel like a fraud. I should give up. That's not what you want to do. The next one is burnout management. At this point, if you're making 50K plus in your business, you likely still are working with a lot of clients. Maybe you're starting to really cap off and tap out. At this stage, you're realizing maybe you need to outsource. You can't really do it all. You actually have paying clients now. And so as you're growing, you're getting more clients. And so it's going to be really tiring. And that's going to be a really huge permission slip for you to outsource, raise your prices, be pickier about the clients that you're working with. That's kind of the stage where you're going to be having those conversations with yourself. It's also the stage where you're going to have a lot of shiny object syndrome. Because at this point you're like, okay, well, I made 50K. How do I get to 100K? And then you're going to think of all these different strategies. You're going to look at what your competitors are doing. You're going to want to try all the platforms. You're going to do all that. And especially because at this stage, you want to get more traffic. You're going to be like, oh gosh, I need to be on YouTube. I need to be on LinkedIn. I need to be doing blog posts. I need to be doing all those things. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that getting more traffic can look different, but it doesn't mean you have to be on more platforms. It could be like maybe choosing one platform and doing it really well and really optimizing to the full extent of that platform, or adding one more platform like Instagram and YouTube, let's say. It doesn't mean that you need to do everything. This is where people at this stage start throwing themselves to all the different strategies. I'm going to do a challenge. I'm going to do a webinar. I'm going to do YouTube. I'm going to do TikTok. I'm going to do everything because I'm not getting consistent clients and I need to make it consistent and hit 10K per month, which would equal 100K total in my business. So you're going to feel a lot of shiny object syndrome here. You're also going to have a lot of fear of spending money to make money. The 50K that you made at this stage, it's going to be harder for you to let it go because maybe it's the most money that you've ever made in your entire life on your own without like a 9-to-5. And so for you, it's going to be really challenging to be like, okay, am I ready to outsource? I don't know. Do I want to spend money on this? Do I want to upgrade my software? It's going to be hard. Your money mindset is going to be really tested at this phase. And so here are some things to remember, because I know that a lot of people mention the fact that, hey, you don't need 10K followers to make a lot of money. And that's true. And I mentioned that at this phase, you're really going to want to be focusing on visibility and getting more visible and doing more collaborations, expanding to at least one more social media platform, list building, increasing your post frequency. So if you used to post once a week, maybe post 3 times a week, outsourcing, there's a lot of activities going on. But what I want you guys to remember is that you can make money with a small audience, but where it becomes a problem is if you don't continue to grow that audience, because you're going to end up plateauing. You will plateau if you don't keep growing that audience. And so at this stage, visibility is going to really matter. Once you check off, okay, great, I've got my identity in check. I know what my offer is going to be. Now it's like, okay, well, how can I get more people to see that offer so that I can make more consistent 10K months? You're going to want to keep growing your audience. You're going to want to keep thinking of ways to get more traffic. And again, that does not mean being on more platforms. Even for me, it took me a while to even add a third platform. I was on Instagram, YouTube, and those were the only 2 for the last 2 years of my business. I scaled to 7 figures with just 2 platforms, but I was very consistent in those platforms. I posted frequently on those platforms. I optimized it. So I would rather you guys pick 1 or 2 platforms and do it really well versus doing multiple platforms, but not giving it your all. And so that's one thing that you need to make sure of. Now, what do you need to drop? Because earlier on in this presentation, I mentioned what got you here is not going to get you there. And so at each stage in your business, I'll show you guys, is yes, you've done a lot of things that have made you really successful in this stage and you've got to your 50K. But once you enter this stage, you're going to need to, like I said, adopt new behaviors in your business. But you're also going to need to drop some of the activity that you used to do that made you successful in this phase right here, in the previous phase. Because if you keep doing the activities that got you to your first 50K and you bring those activities to this stage when you're trying to hit 100K, you're not going to hit 100K. You're going to still end up in the 50K range because you're doing the same actions, right? What got you here is not going to get you there. You need to keep evolving. And so what do you need to drop when you want to hit your first 100K, your 50K to 100K? Well, like I mentioned, constant pivots and change in your avatar. Like I said, it's okay if you make these little pivots out because you want to feel more aligned in your business. But if you keep changing it, if you keep like micro analyzing it, if you keep like doing drastic changes, you're going to stay stuck with the inconsistent money that you're making and only hitting like 50K. Right? And if 50K is your goal, that's amazing. But I'm telling you, at 6 figures, that's when your income should be a little bit more consistent. Another thing is analyzing the competition way too much to the point of comparison. Analyzing the competition is helpful when you're first starting out and you don't know where your voice is. But once you've kind of mapped out your identity, if you keep doing it, it's going to lead to that imposter syndrome even more. It's going to lead to you comparing, and it's going to lead to more shiny object syndrome, which is going to keep you stuck at the 50K range and not go into the 100K range. You also need to drop staying stuck and speaking to the same people within your audience. When you're first starting out your identity, your audience doesn't know you yet. You want to build trust with your existing audience. You're going to want to focus on that. But if you keep just talking to the same people over and over again, you don't focus on building your email list, you don't focus on getting more traffic, you don't focus on creating shareable content, you don't focus on collaborations, you don't focus on getting your name out to more people, then you're, number one, you're not going to get more opportunities. And number two, you're not going to grow. And so you're going to hit an income cap. And so these are things that you need to drop, because I know that a lot of these things were important when you were first starting out. But if you want to get to the next level, these are things that you're going to have to let go of. Now, like I said, if you stay stuck with analyzing your business and the competitive landscape too much, you will stay under the 50K range because you're constantly pivoting, or you're just too in the weeds of your business internally. So when you're in the 50K range, when you're first starting out, you're going to be really focusing on who you are, your identity, all that stuff. But if you keep looking internally and you don't focus on the external things like social media, like collaborations, like list building, like all the lead generation activities, the sales activities, lead gen activities, traffic driving activities, then you're going to stay stuck. You're not going to excel and grow. Hey boss, are you enjoying what you're hearing so far? Well, I'm interrupting my own episode to invite you to my free training over at www.followerstoclients.com. This training has helped thousands of my own students nail down their niche, create content that brings them more leads to their door, and implement an easy-to-deploy social media funnel that helps them close clients like a boss. This training is perfect for anyone who is starting out in business and wants to know the roadmap to making 10K months, regardless if you're a new coach, content creator, or corporate escapee. By the end of this training, you are guaranteed to walk away with strategies that you can implement instantly. The best part is that this training is absolutely free and breaks down my entire methodology to signing paid clients, plus complimentary trainings that I don't share anywhere else on my free channels. Register today at www.followerstoclients.com. Link is in the description box below. I can't wait to see you there. And now let's get back into the episode. Now let's move on to the next phase. And this is when you've broke past 100K. Okay, now you're in the either the 6-figure or the multiple 6-figure range, 100K to $1 million. What do you need to focus on? Here, you need to focus on systems, having systems in your business. And the question that you want to ask yourself is, how do I stop trading time for money and make money consistently? I'm going to repeat that. How do I stop trading time for money and make money consistently? Now, what this includes is creating a process for success that can be repeated for your clients. And so what that means is you're able to not just create custom packages for your clients anymore. You've got this framework that anyone who fits your ideal client that you got really clear on when you were a solopreneur and as you were scaling up, if they go through that process, a good portion of them will get results without needing you to have custom attention to them. So for instance, with the Boss Gram Academy, I've got my followers to clients system. So if you are a new coach or a new consultant and you've never signed your first paid client before and your goal is to sign your first paid client, if you go through this system, you follow it to the T, you will sign your first paid client. You will. And the reason why is because I've created the system that's developed specifically for that type of avatar. And so that's why having that clarity in the beginning really matters. And here you might need to still niche down even further. But what's more important is you focus on creating that process for success that can be repeated for your clients. At this stage, you're also going to want to clean things up on your back end internally. Maybe at this stage, you've just been putting notes on your phone or WhatsApping, your contractor, or maybe you're just kind of like, there's no Google Drives, there's no folders, there's no sort of policies or procedures. This is where you're going to want to implement that. So what I mean is you're going to want standard operating procedures, SOPs. What that means is you have like a rule book on how you do things. So for instance, I have standard operating procedures on how to upload videos to YouTube. So I actually have a Google Doc that literally goes through step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how you upload videos to YouTube with the Vanessa Lau channel. These are things that we do to optimize the video. This is how you do keyword research, all that. It's all laid out in a document. That's an SOP. I have an SOP for that. And so the purpose of that is that if I have a new team member who's coming in, I don't have to share my screen and show them how to do it. I just give them the link to that SOP. They follow it to the T, and they're going to be able to do the task. And so for us in my business, when I hit the 6-figure level, that's when I started doing and creating SOPs. I have an SOP for every single task in my business. And so you could literally run my entire business without me because I have these SOPs. I also have canned responses. So what that means is for customer support, instead of doing a custom message for each person who comes in, we have a whole library of frequently asked questions from customer support, the exact copy and paste response. Now, obviously, our customer service people can tweak it and modify it to customize it slightly, but everything is basically copy and paste, because at this stage, when you're in the 6-figure level, you want to make sure that you have a scalable business. And what that means is that if you have more people joining your team, you don't have to trade time for money to train them. You don't have to trade time for money to do the work for them. They need to be able to take the canned responses, take the standard operating procedures, take the templates that you've created, kind of like when you create a course. You don't want your students to rely on you and ask every single question. So what are you going to do? You're going to have the PowerPoint presentations for them, teaching them how to do a certain result. You're going to have worksheets for them. You're going to have templates, swipe files, all those things so that they can do things themselves. And so that's the same thing that you want to do for your business. Like, you basically want to create like a course for your business so that your team members know how to run it and you know how to run it, and it's consistent, so that every client or every prospect who comes in, they get a very consistent experience. And so that's kind of the things that you want to focus on once you enter the multiple 6 figures. You also want to start outsourcing client and prospect facing tasks. Now, obviously you could do this beforehand as well, but this is where you really want to do it. For instance, for me, when I hit the 6-figure level, that's when I hired a community manager to manage my Facebook community for my students, answer questions that they had. So I got taken out of customer support. I got taken out of fulfillment of like community management stuff, because when you're at the 6-figure level, you're going to want to focus on other things in your business. You're going to want to focus on developing these systems. You're going to be managing, at least 1 or 2 contractors on your team. You're going to be doing a lot of those things. And so the biggest, I wouldn't want to say time suck, but the most time consuming activity is going to be client support, is going to be prospect management. And so you're going to want to start outsourcing that. The next thing is, in terms of strategic hires, you might want to hire people that are in tech or operation roles. So instead of you setting up your active campaign or your ConvertKit, or you creating email sequences, or you putting things in Excel spreadsheets, you're going to want someone to do that for you. So that's like tech and admin, let's say. Or if you want to take it a step further, you might want to hire someone in operations so that they can do project management for you, so that they can build a plan out. So let's say, as the visionary of your business, you're saying to yourself, hey, Alice, this year I want to make $4 million in my business, and I want to have this launch, and this is my big vision idea. Well, Alice, my operations manager, is then going to come up with the roadmap. Okay, Vanessa, she's going to ask me, when do you want to get it done by? Okay, then she's going to assign tasks to different contractors or different employees. She's going to create like a roadmap on Asana, on ClickUp, on whatever project management system that you use. And she's going to say, does this plan make sense? She's going to create the plan. She's going to delegate the task so that you, as a CEO, you don't have to do that. And maybe instead of doing all that stuff, you're more focused on lead generation. You're more focused on creating curriculum for your students. You're more focused on doing YouTube videos, whatever your zone of genius in, you want people to do things that are more minute and more technical so that you can focus on really being the visionary of your business, maybe planning for their launches, maybe planning what you're going to do next year. You're going to want to step into that zone. Another thing that you want to consider doing when we talk about systems and automation in your multiple six-figure business is evergreen funnels, email sequences. Instead of you sending, an email whenever you need to send it. So for instance, how many of you actually go on like ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit, and then you send an email out or whatever else for the day of or the day after or next week, that's still really manual. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start creating automation sequences so that when someone joins your email list, they're already getting emails automatically and you already wrote them or someone on your team wrote them and they're just blast off, like they're automated. So you're not trading time for money anymore. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say systems. It's systems within your course, systems within how you manage your clients, systems in your business, all these different systems. Now, the internal shifts that you need to let go of, because at this stage, you're going to feel certain feelings, is letting go of customization, being less involved in customer support, and fear of letting go of control. This is where you're really starting to trust the contractors that you've hired to serve your clients or to serve your prospects. And it can be a really scary thing. I remember that was the last thing I wanted to let go of. Not that I loved doing customer support, but I was really afraid that no one else could do it better than me. I was really afraid, and especially because these are prospects, these are potential paying customers, or these are paid customers, you want to make sure that you give them the most attention. But that's the equivalent of Jeff Bezos making sure that every person who buys from Amazon Prime get like a note from him or get his input or whatever. Like, it's too micro, and you're going to want to let that go because this is the most time consuming work, but it's going to be really hard to let it go because when you first start your business, you probably were successful because you talked to your customers face to face, because you had that closeness with your prospects. But when you hit the multiple six figures, if you keep doing that, if you are still in the weeds of customizing everything, your impact is going to be limited. If I'm constantly trying to make sure that each customer support email has my eyeballs on it, I review it, or I'm the one doing it, I'm not going to be able to reach more people. I'm not going to be able to have more prospects. I'm not going to be able to help more people. And it takes away my time from doing content on YouTube that brings in more prospects, right? And so that's the thing that you have to let go of, but it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard because a lot of people, want to really be a part of that customer experience, but it doesn't mean that you're not a part of it if you're not the one sending the email. You're still going to be the one creating or okaying or approving the canned responses, the templates, the standard operating procedures. You are more so going to create the protocols. You're going to share your values to your team. You're going to share the do's and don'ts, and then they're going to execute that vision, right? So you're still a part of the client experience, but you're not necessarily the one sending the email, drafting the responses, being in Help Scout or being in Gmail or whatever and doing all the work. So that's the thing that you have to let go of. That's going to be really hard at that stage. Now, here are some things that you need to drop from the previous stage, because the previous stage, when you're making like 50 to 100K, I talked about how you should probably be focusing on traffic, and you should just kind of expand some of the social media platforms and all of that. Now that's helpful, but focusing on getting more traffic can only get you so far, because if you keep focusing on traffic without leaning into creating systems that convert, whatever systems, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity to scale up. Because let's say if you're only focused on getting more followers, if you're only focused on getting more views, getting more visibility, but you don't have the systems to convert that traffic, then you're not optimizing that traffic that you're getting, and you're losing a lot of prospects. You're losing a lot of leads that can help you get to 1 million. That can help you get to multiple six figures, right? So if I keep focusing on posting on Instagram, if I keep focusing on YouTube and all those things, but I'm not focusing on creating email sequences, I'm not focusing on creating an evergreen funnel, I'm not creating any of that, then you're going to get capped. It doesn't matter how much traffic you generate. If you can't convert the traffic consistently, then you're in big doo-doo, you're in trouble. Now, again, like I said, it does not mean you don't focus on traffic, because At any stage in business, visibility is always a good thing, but it just means that you need to be mindful of creating scalable systems. Now, once you have traffic sources that work for you, so let's say in my case, YouTube works really well for me, Instagram works really well for me, and podcast is something that's newer, the goal is to make sure that you can sustain it and that you send traffic to a sales system that works every single time. And so at this stage, you're really going to want to perfect that system, especially now at this stage, you probably have a handle on social media and you know which platforms are generating the most traffic and return for you in terms of getting your ideal clients. Now it's the back end that you want to focus on. You also need to drop custom plans for your clients and creating plug and play frameworks for your clients to still get success. So what this means, like I said, is no more creating custom plans for your clients. Really try to streamline that. Create a system that you're known for, a system for success that can be repeatable for your clients. And if it's not repeatable, if your clients still can't get results, you really want to focus on updating the curriculums that you have, the client experience that you have, automating everything so that you don't have to trade more time for money. And so those are things that you want to focus on. Now, the next stage we're talking about is 7 figures. Once you've made multiple 6 figures and now you're heading into 7 figures or even multiple 7 figures, now what is the key focus? Now that you've perfected your systems, you want to shift towards your team, okay? And now the question is, how does my team get me ahead? Okay, I'm going to repeat that. How does my team get me ahead? And so what this can look like is hiring full-time employees instead of part-time contractors. This was the shift that I had to make in my business where I had a lot of contractors that were working for me, but they were part-time. They worked with other clients. When you hit the 7-figure stage, you're going to want more attention from your team members. And that usually means they need to be full-time and they need to not work with other clients, let's say. You also need to become more of a leader, not just leading your followers or leading your subscribers. It's more about internal leadership and leading your team that's helping you get ahead. You also want to be focusing on training and investing in team members so that they can excel in their roles and creating processes that help the team get organized. So it's not just creating processes and systems for your prospects to find you. You've already done that in the multiple 6-figure stage. And it's not also about you investing in masterminds and one-on-one coaching programs for yourself. It's now investing in your team. Everything that you do in the 7-figure level is making sure your team succeeds. Very similar to how up until this stage, you're trying to help your followers, your clients, your students succeed. Now it's about helping your team succeed. That's the most important thing because your team is what's really going to make or break whether or not you scale past 7 figures and keep moving beyond that. Now, what are some internal shifts? Fear of letting go of control. This was also in the previous one, but even more so here. This is where there's going to be some tasks or some conversations happening in your business that you aren't even aware is happening. So even in my business at this stage, I've got team members running projects and I don't even know what their projects are. I'm letting them make the ideas. I'm letting them come up with the ideas, the solutions to the problems in the business, and I'm fully trusting them to execute it. And once it's done, they tell me what they've done. They tell me, they give me an update. And so that's the amount of control that you're going to want to let go of because you can't do everything when you're running a multiple 7-figure business. Another internal shift that you have to make is taking responsibility for other people's mistakes. So when you start having a fuller stacked team, and at this stage, you likely have a bigger audience, there's more eyeballs on you. If a team member messes up a newsletter or says something that you wouldn't have said or made the wrong call with a customer, maybe a customer was really upset and your team didn't handle it the right way, at the end of the day, that lies on you. And so an internal shift that you have to make is being able to take responsibility for other people's mistakes and owning up to it. That is when your leadership skills are truly tested. It's not leadership in terms of, I posted something that was really leadership focused on my Instagram and I really empowered my followers to become leaders. No. This is you actually being a leader and actually doing the hard things. Another thing is spending money on other people outside of yourself. Up until this point, you likely have invested in a lot of resources for yourself, whether that's masterminds, group coaching programs, courses. Now you're investing courses for your team so that they can excel. You're investing in group coaching programs for maybe your operations manager or someone else on your team so that they can get better. Maybe you have a salesperson. Maybe you enroll in a sales course for them, not necessarily for you. And so these are little money mindset shifts that you have to make, and allocating a budget towards improving your team. You also need to internally shift and not be afraid of uncomfortable conversations. At this point, you're going to need to let people go. You're going to need to do performance evaluations. You're going to really need to be a leader. And so this is really painful. I know for me, when I had to switch from part-time contractors to full-time employees, I had to let people go, and it was the hardest thing that I've ever done. And it's not fun. You're gonna do the unsexy work. And also in your team, you're gonna be the one doing the unsexy work at the 7-figure level, but your team is gonna get credit for a lot of the wins that happen in the business because you wanna empower them. And oftentimes, the cool ideas, the cool execution did come from your team. And so you wanna make sure that you're no longer in the spotlight, and it's really your team that's getting a lot of the credit for the success that your business has had. You also want to make sure you have extreme self-care. And, what I've noticed is that as I've grown from solopreneur to, 7-figure entrepreneur and whatever else, my self-care has gotten better and better. My work-life balance has gotten better and better. When I was a solopreneur focusing on building up my identity, or even at the less than 100K phase when I was trying to build up my visibility, I was just running in circles, because I was doing it all. I was still a solopreneur. I didn't have a lot of self-care. But as you start scaling up, as you start delegating, as you start having more systems that are automated, you're going to free up a lot of time for yourself to take a nap, to take care of yourself, to eat better. You're also going to have more money to spend on yourself too. You're going to have more money to invest in a personal trainer, in a nutritionist, in all these different things. And so your self-care is just going to go up from here. And that's important because you want to make sure you create space for yourself, because it's a lot of energy. Because not only do you have to exert energy to show up for your audience, you also need the energy to show up for your team. And if you don't have self-care in place, it's going to be hard for you to do that. So here are some things that you need to drop, because like I said, we talked about what got you there is not going to get you, what got you here is not going to get you there. So whatever got you to multiple 6 figures is not going to get you to multiple 7 figures. And these are the things that you need to drop. Like I said, part-time contractors who aren't 100% dedicated or all in on your business. And so when you're in the multiple 6-figure level, you're going to want to hire contractors because that's probably what you can afford. Maybe you're not ready for a full-time team member yet, but now those people, you either have to convert them into full-time, or you have to let them go and replace them with someone who's full-time, who can be 100% dedicated to building your 7-figure empire. And so those are things that you need to drop that got you to multiple 6 figures, but won't get you to multiple 7 figures. And just to clarify, you can still have some part-time contractors in your multiple 7-figure business, but your core team, you need to have at least one person who's full-time there with you. Another thing is investments in yourself only. Like I said, instead of a one-on-one coach for you or a mastermind for you, you start investing in training for your team. So that's one thing that you need to drop, because a lot of those masterminds, a lot of those things will help you get to multiple 6 figures. But even for me at this stage, I'm not in any masterminds. I'm not in any group coaching programs. I'm not in anything for me. And the main investments that we've made in our business has been for our team to get better. You also need to drop your ego. Once you start really managing a team, you start having recurring weekly meetings with your team. You have lots of check-ins. You have all these different things that track your team's progress, because you're going to get really close. You have to understand that you aren't always right. There's going to be team members who come up with new ideas that are better than yours. There's going to be team members who disagree with the direction, that want to bring you back down to earth. Maybe because you're such a visionary, you have all these ideas, but now you have a team to take care of, and you want to make sure they don't burn out. Even for you, if you're okay with staying up till 2 a.m. in the morning doing work, that's fine, but that's not a requirement of your team. And so what I've found is that things happen slower, because now you have to loop in more people on a project. You have to make sure people have work-life balance, and they're not like you, like a solopreneur, when you're working really late in the hours. So things happen slower, and your ego needs to be okay with that. I have so many ideas that I want to do, but a lot of times people in my audience notice, hey, Vanessa, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? Well, because it's harder. You're not as agile as you once were as a solopreneur because there's more people that you have to go through, more projects that you're working on, more boundaries that are created for the health of your business. And so all these things you have to let go of. And you also have to have extreme accountability and self-awareness. Another thing that you want to let go of is trying to do everything and micromanage, which means you have to stop white knuckling your business. What this means is you can't just look over the shoulder of everyone. Maybe that served you well in the multiple six-figure business or even like leading up to that, where you still have your hands in a lot of things. But here at the multiple seven-figure stage, you got to let it go. Stop micromanaging. Empower your team to make decisions, because if they feel like you're micromanaging, they're going to leave you, or they're going to not actually be their best selves and they're not going to come up with the ideas, because what's the point of coming up with an idea if Vanessa's going to micromanage it anyways, right? So this is where you want to stop white knuckling everything and trust your team to do things for you. And your focus is making sure they're at a place where they can do things for you. And then also, you also need to drop the idea of you being the only content creator or idea generator. You're going to want to focus a lot on your team for them to come up with exciting ideas, because if you're the only one that's coming up with ideas for your business, well, you're going to be the smartest person in the room, and that's never a good scenario. You want to make sure that you have new perspectives from team members, that if you have a social media manager, your social media manager is doing research outside and bringing in new ideas, fresh perspectives. These are things that you want to let go of. You want to let go of the idea that you're going to be the only content creator in your business. That's not true. So remember, things from the previous income level need to be perfected to move on to the next one. And so a lot of times people, and especially if you're seeing the presentation that I have here, a lot of people, they're going to want to focus on, okay, well, Vanessa mentioned that in order for me to get to 50K, I need to focus on visibility. And so I need to do all that right now, even though I'm in the less than 50K level. Right? So even if I've only made 10K in my business, Vanessa said that if I want to make $1 million, I need to have a team. No. You don't want to look in that direction. You don't want to look at what's ahead. You want to look behind and look in the past and see, did I master my identity at the 50K range? If I did, now I'm ready to move on to the next level. Did I master my visibility? Great. If I did, now I can move on to the next level. Did I master my systems? Yes, great. Now I can move on to the next level. Did I, serve my team? Is my team empowered? Great. Now I can move on to the next level. It's not about, and that's different. It's not about you being like, okay, well, I need to be on all the social media platforms in order to hit, the 50 to 100K range. Or, oh no, I need to have systems. And so therefore, once I have my systems, then I'll be in the 100K range. Oh, I need a team. I need to do recruitment and all that. Now I'll be in the 7-figure range. No. You need to make sure that you check off what you need to accomplish in each stage before you can move on to the next one. If you don't, you're just going to stay stuck. So if you're making $0 right now and you are like, I need to have systems in order to make 100K, great. So I'll just skip all the other things and just do systems. Then I'll for sure hit 100K. That's not true. It's like building foundations. You need to make sure you have step 1 completely checked off before you go to step 2. And so that's kind of the journey of being a solopreneur all the way to having a 7-figure business. And obviously, as you go past 7 figures, there's more shifts that you need to make. But for me, I'm still in the multiple 7-figure range, and the next step would be in the 8-figure range. And I'm sure there's other things that I personally need to switch up as well. And so guys, that is the basic training / presentation or / lesson on the different shifts tactfully and also internal shifts that you need to make in your business. If you want to connect with me, follow me on Instagram at vanessalau.co. Find me on my YouTube, Vanessa Lau. I also have a free training, www.followerstoclients.com, for more business strategy and tips. And in this training, I even go through the different stages of scaling up and even more tactful lessons that you need to know. So if you liked this, you're really going to love the www.followerstoclients.com training. You just finished listening to an episode on the Turn Your Followers into Clients podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you leave us a review on iTunes and don't forget to share this episode with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag me at vanessalau.co on Instagram. Now, if you want more of that good stuff, head over to www.vanessalau.co, click on our blog, and access all of the show notes from this podcast. Now, boss, keep doing the damn thing and building a business you don't need an escape from.